Right, so officially, I'm going to welcome everybody here tonight for the first of the RPS Documentary and Contemporary Scotland Nights. Labhairt Beag, small talk. We can't call it Pechi Kucha because we'll get sued. So we've changed the name to the Gaelic equivalent and probably a better name anyway, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
who needs Americanization these days in particular? So we're going to start off tonight with Andrew. It's an alphabetical order on your first name because that's how the files came in. So that's how the order's been chosen for tonight. So I'm going to put the slide slow up, start playing it, and I'm going to share my screen. Oh, there we go. Can everybody see that now?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Right, so that should all go. So, Andrew, once we get started on this, you'll see your first one will be coming up. You can start talking us through what you've been
Fine.
doing.
Yeah.
Nice looking stuff coming up from you. Each slide's on for 30 seconds, and then there's a 5 minute gap and then before the next one starts. So, Andrew, on you go.
Okay, thank you. So, people, one of my plans for 2026 is really to continue to progress my colour, a kind of non-narrative documentary panel portfolio essay, call it what you want, again of the people in the streets of Glasgow. It's not of a documentary genre, perhaps, although a corresponding statement of work, statement of intent is still very much under draft. So these images are an example to represent my development of my ongoing street photography work. Unlike my previous work, I think these images are more deliberately highly stylized. There is a theme of a strong use of dominant color, and there's a very much a tightness of frame. And I think the reason for the tightness of frame is, the consideration is a metaphor for the city of Glasgow, its own boundaries and the borders that exist between the areas and districts within the city. So I have people placed within the frame. They're often isolated. In some cases, they're exiting the frame. But the figures, to me, feel to be in transition, moving from not just one physical place to another, but perhaps from an emotional place to another. And the architecture of Glasgow, in the appropriate light, accentuates the geometry of the system. So we've got sharp lines. There's quite a few dark zones and hidden spots. And I try to use these to combine a sense of isolation, perhaps, maybe sinisterism. But as a medium, I want this to play into the concept of the borders and boundaries within the photographs and therefore within the city. So the kind of abstract thinking or conceptual thinking around it is, well, cities have natural and man-made boundaries, and these are created by transport networks, by housing and buildings, by rivers, by lakes, by fields, and what have you. And Glasgow, to me, kind of reinforces these boundaries by the existence of some which are non-physical. And these that Glaswegians are born into. So I'm talking about boundaries between wealth and poverty. Boundaries exist because of race, and in Glasgow because of religion. And these boundaries, I think, often determine where someone will be or where someone can be, and trying to show the transition through the city across the physical and non-physical boundaries that people are trying to overcome. So the images themselves is not a great deal of post-processing, a little work on contrast and colour. And unlike my other work, they're probably in the main taken with a slightly longer focal length, 50, a 75, or a 90 mil, just to accentuate compress it a little bit. And they're all in portrait format, again, just to try and narrow the angle of view and reinforce that isolation that exists. Sorry about that.
It's beautiful. Can I say something?
Yeah.
These pictures look like paintings, like a Rembrandt. These pictures are very beautiful.
I would say, Andrew, that sharper's not the word, because that implies that the other ones were blurry, but sharper in they're more coherent in your ideas, they're more focused. And the colour stuff, I mean, I know Dave Shillaby is very much a fan of Saul Leiter and how he used to pick colours, reds and yellows, but you seem to have really narrowed it down, and it's a lot more clean. And I'm not implying that the other stuff before that wasn't, but you've worked hard at this. I thought they were really impressive.
That's very kind of to say. So they are quite different from the other work. They are cleaner, they are sharper, they are more precise. It's just a different way to come about the photography and keep these visits to Glasgow interesting by trying to take these little detours and do things that are slightly different.
You did an RPS course, didn't you?
I did a course, which probably hasn't influenced this so much, with Alexandria Fazzini, who is a journalist, and that was well worth doing. It was really good value for money. It was not expensive considering how much time she puts in, but she works you hard. So I think she still does stuff via the RPS, and it's very interesting course. It's less about the image and all about the process of why take pictures and who your audience is, etc. So yeah, it was very good.
I'd say it's noticeably different to what you did before, and it just seems more focused, more cleaner.
Yeah, I like what I see, Andrew. I mean, I think it's great work. You're really going somewhere with this. What I get from it, though, is a sense of people in the world. I mean, you mentioned Glasgow a number of times. I don't know Glasgow very well, but I get no feeling for the city of Glasgow. Um, and that's not a problem for me. I say it's people in the world, but I don't see people in Glasgow.
No, it's a fair point, Nigel. Just need to keep an eye on time. But my associate panels of the travel genre, and this is not travel, it's not about a sense of place. They are all Glasgow because it's Glasgow photographing. So that's important to me for reasons that probably aren't important for the photography per se. But yeah, it does not it doesn't really create that sense of place of Glasgow.
Do you think that's something you'll have to be careful with, Andrew, with the statement of intent? If you mention people in Glasgow, then you might get the same criticism that Nigel's just come up with. That doesn't say Glasgow.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think it's travel
Yeah.
in any way. It might, at the moment it's hairy-fairy, so it's possibly contemporary.
You know what, sir? If you don't ask me, Miss Sandy, these pictures are very beautiful. The composition is very strong, and the colors, shades, and the darkness to light. It's like painting. It's very beautiful. Very beautiful
Thank
indeed.
you. That's kind.
Yeah, there's a very coherent style,
Very beautiful.
Andrew, that comes across.
Yeah.
And I think the joy of street photography is, as we know, is that you can do it almost anywhere. and the the location is largely irrelevant, and
Yeah.
clearly the theme of isolation comes across very clearly. I think it's all good stuff.
Thank you. Yeah,
I
no, see
enjoyed
where it
looking at them.
goes.
I think the blue ones are particularly exciting in that they convey a loneliness that the reds, the coldness of the blue exaggerates the loneliness. And
Oh, we're
I really
declining.
liked the.
We're
Do I have to-
declining now.
We have to
Okay.
go on, B, right? Okay. This is an extension of my ARPS panel, which was in documentary. This isn't so much documentary. This is more contemporary, but it's my panel for the ARPS followed my dad's last few months with mesothelioma, which is a cancer of the chest, and my mum's encroaching dementia. And I continued to take photographs of my mum after my dad passed, and it's something that I'm continuing to do. This is a bit of a side project. It's not my typical photography. I normally do street and the pretty pictures that we use in camera clubs and stuff like that. But I did feel a certain fulfillment photographing my parents during a very difficult time. And the time continues, the difficult times continue with my mum. What I'm trying to do is not so much take photographs of the dementia, but more what it means to me and to my mum, and to try and capture those little moments rather than sort of spell out almost sort of painting by numbers what dementia is. It's just a very personal look. I'm trying to not show a decline or any sort of tragedy explicitly. It's about showing the sort of textures of how she lives with the condition, how it touches her and myself and my family as well. Church is a big thing for mum, so I took the camera along to a church service that she goes to and captured some pictures there as well. I'm still finding my way with this because it's clearly it's not easy to do. None of these pictures are particularly posed. I try and take them candidly, and it can be quite awkward. But I'm trying to capture those little moments where you get glimpses beyond what you're looking at and more about what's going on. This picture particularly, mum has to write everything down because she more or less forgets it straight away. So she has to keep taking notes so that she can refer back to it in this journal that she keeps to remember what's happened. And we're talking literally 5 or 10 minutes and she's forgotten everything and has to go back to this book. So I'm looking to capture these little details of the daily life and her routines that sort of show how she's getting through this disease. She's taken to feeding the birds in the garden, and it's sort of the dotty old lady thing of feeding pigeons, but it gives her some small comfort to have these these pigeons come up and she feeds them bits of bread. And it's these little moments that I'm trying to capture in my photography. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. These are all pretty much taken on 35mm prime lens. And they're all in black and white, as you can see, because again, I'm not wanting the colors of the world to influence how you feel about these pictures. This is particularly poignant. Her brother came up to visit from London. He doesn't get up very often. He hadn't seen her for a couple of years and he was quite shocked by the condition that mum was in. But she walked him around the garden and talked happily about the old times. But when we went in for a cup of tea and sat down, the first thing she said to me was, "Who's that man sitting in the corner?" So she'd already forgotten her brother in the time that it took us to make a cup of tea. So that picture, again, is symbolic of that. She shows moments of being perfectly normal, and the memory all comes back and everything's fine, uh, and then it all goes again. So I'm trying with this photography to give you a very close up and personal insight into my mother's condition. Um, it's obviously it's only something I can do because I have the sort of privileged access to be with mum on a fairly regular basis. I go through every week or 10 days or so to spend a day or two with mum. And I can capture the happy moments as well. So that's her opening up a Christmas card. Within a few minutes, she'll have forgotten who sent that Christmas card to her, but she'll go back and look at it and remember again. Um, so yeah, difficult subject. I'm hoping to try and build this into a project just for me, really, but it might come to something else. I don't know whether it's a candidate for a contemporary distinction of some sort in the future. But for me, really, it's my way of dealing with the condition and making a documentation. This is the last picture of the sequence. Mum is particularly confused when she gets up in the morning. She really doesn't remember anything from the day before. She often forgets I'm even there, so she'll wake up and be shocked to find me in the house because she doesn't remember me coming. This was a difficult picture to take because she was particularly confused at this point, and I think that comes across in her expression. So yeah, so that's my sort of continuation of the A panel that I did on my dad and mum, and now obviously just with mum.
Clive, when you take photographs of your mum, are they just, I hate to put it this way, but are they just the single shot snapshots that you see at the time?
I'm trying to catch those moments. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, in actual fact, mate, whether it might not be about it's very, very difficult to get that exact moment, isn't it? So a lot of the time you take that photograph, you've actually just missed it.
Yeah, well, there's lots of things like that. By the time you pick the camera up, the moment's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm taking, obviously, this is just 10 pictures. I'm trying to take quite a few without taking photographs the whole time, because obviously that would be a bit weird. But I'm trying to keep my eyes open.
When you see something developing, would it not be a bad idea to take basically the machine gun approach as something transpires over a short period of time, so that you actually try to get that exact moment rather than you being anticipatory to get the one shot?
It's very difficult because the moments can come and go very, very quickly, and you know, I miss most of them. Even when I'm sitting there looking, I can say that would have been a great photograph for this project. I'm just happy to get some of the photographs, really.
I think, Clive, if you don't mind me saying so, I think that image there is the absolute capture. It's the decisive moment. It's you can just feel the how the confusion and the look and the the vacant look that comes with that moment. And it can be a very, very brief moment. I think it's a incredible panel. It's so emotional, poignant, and I think clever and smart. The picture of her taking notes, I think, is a wonderful document of the situation that your mother's under. But I think it's such a strong, as was your A panel, just good to see more, because it's just such strong, emotional, personal images that we're very fortunate that you're willing to share with us.
I would agree with that. And I think the first 9, what came across to me was that it's a bit like the mirrors and the windows. What came across was that these were taken by somebody that cared a lot, that there's a warmth in them. And then you get to this one, which is much more distressed looking, and you just wonder whether, are you going to get more of that sort of behavior, which might be chapter, the next chapter, but there's a very different feel to that one than the other.
And I ended with this one specifically. I wanted this to be the last one because it does have that hit. But as I said at the beginning, I'm trying not to take pictures of the dementia so much and try and make it about mum and the way that the dementia is affecting her. But I don't want to make it too dramatic and have them all very sort of distressing to look at. I want to capture some of the humanity as well, and the routines and the gestures and the small things.
I think you've definitely done that, especially in the first 9.
Yeah,
I think Clive, the pictures remind me very much of an excellent book. I don't know whether you've seen it, called The Day-to-Day Life of Albert Hastings, by I think an American photographer who studied over here in the UK, called Kaylin Devaney. And she basically, as the title implies, photographed a neighbour, an elderly man, sadly no longer with us. In his day-to-day life, he was a widower. And I think I've always used it as a great little reference book when I want to get inspiration about capturing people in their own home. And
Let's have a look at that.
Yeah, I'll put the
into the chat.
Details in the chat,
thank
and
you.
yeah, follow it up.
Oh,
Thank you.
Dave,
Right,
you're on.
okay, my project is Streets Without People. But first I want to talk about wabi-sabi. I was first made aware of the concept of wabi-sabi by my granddaughter, who is studying design and making jewellery at Glasgow College of Art. She saw one of my photos on Nairn Rocks, our local Facebook site, and made comment on it. Now, wabi-sabi is a Japanese aesthetic concept that finds beauty and serenity in objects, landscapes, designs, and life itself that are simple, imperfect, and impermanent. It emphasizes the acceptance of transience and imperfection. In that transience and imperfection, there is an appreciation of the imperfect, the incomplete, and impermanence. It's about seeing a crack in a vase and ignoring the traditional opinions of beauty. If the vase leaks through that crack, it's about admiring the shape of the water underneath it. Wabi-sabi is about acknowledging that everything, including our lives, is in a state of flux. Even rocks that appear solid bear the scars of time passing. This gave me the idea of shooting something that is visibly in the process of changing. It might be paint peeling, a plant blooming, or food bubbling away in a pot. So how do I go about showing this concept in Streets Without People? I hope to show the beauty of those little overlooked inanimate objects, basically street still life. I think I will need to focus on the remains of the human presence in urban spaces. I will have to make the objects themselves speak of the presence of human life. They can tell us about the things that matter to us and maybe the things that don't. I will be looking for the little details that speak of something bigger in our lives, the little objects that tell the story of how we live, discarded toys, books, papers, tools, clothes, general impedimenta of life. Maybe an empty table not yet cleared, maybe in a restaurant window. What is the story? I will have to make pictures that make us apply our own stories and think about what it means to be human in a city space. It means looking around and finding what people have left behind in the wake of their lives. Well, having found it, I will have to spend time with the object and make a great image of it. That image must have integrity. The images have to be properly candid, not set up. And I have to make an image that has a narrative. I'm a member of both the documentary and contemporary groups. The RPS has a definition for both. The documentary definition is relatively easy. Photography that communicates a clear narrative through visual literacy. I have, however, struggled with the definition of contemporary. Photography that contains ideas, stimulates thought, and encourages interpretation. They're photos about rather than of. My interpretation is the images illustrate something which is intangible and not open to direct illustration. Another way of looking at it is that contemporary photography is a visual metaphor, a visual realization of something that is not visible. So what is my goal or aim for the project? I'm trying to produce images that tell us something about the nature of what they represent as well as about ourselves. As an analogy, I suppose it's like archaeology, which is the study of ancient and recent human past through material remains. Those remains give us the tools to examine and explain human behavior. We analyze the drivers and implications of that changing world and how they reacted. We try to understand how society functioned, and from that we try to learn from the past and apply these lessons to the present. So, by finding the objects and images in Streets Without People, I hope to produce a backstory, a visual metaphor of something that is not visible in the images.
Archaeology. That's a good way of putting it, isn't it? So
metaphor is good.
Yeah, because you're then thinking, because the last time we were speaking, you were talking about doing fairly high contrast monochrome images. So is that still on the go, or is this going to take over? Or
I've looked at the high contrast monochrome, and I put it up at the photo forum in Nairn, and I'm quite pleased with it. But looking at the reaction that came from other people, it's not quite working somehow.
okay.
And I've had a look in Inverness at various places that I've gone around, and there is a wealth of stuff that we just walk past, and nobody takes the blindest bit of notice, but each piece has got a story to it. And it's just a matter of going around, finding it, interpreting it. But the biggest job is making a picture out of it, rather than just a record shot.
Mm. I think it is a challenge, because I think it's a wonderful theme, a wonderful idea of sort of debris of civilization. And it obviously takes a lot of time, David, to get images which are not just record shots. And I think you certainly got that. There were some that I think stand out. You know, the "To Let" sign on its edge, sitting outside the building with the window. I think, I love the composition, the sign and the window against on the wall. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful theme. I think there's some strong images in here that capture the essence of what you've been talking about. So I didn't see the high contrast stuff, but I think there's certainly something in this.
Dave,
Yeah, I think that archaeology one is good. That's a real good idea.
Here's another term, Dave. Have you come across the term photographic haiku?
No.
I mean, it's the Japanese haiku is a literary style. A small number of words alluding to something else. Search on the term photographic haiku. Definition I've got here is understated and adorned, composed of simple elements which are evocative features of the landscape alluding to something else. Which I think is very much what you've got here. It's very, very simple things, but they do trigger the memory, and the viewer starts making their own story about what they might allude to, and it works very well in that respect.
That's why Mr. David has used the word metaphor there.
Yeah.
Can you hear?
Sorry?
I think that's why Mr. David has used. Mr. David, you used the word metaphor there. It's a good word for that street photography of yours.
Well, yes, I hope so. And what I'm also trying to do is, and you've noticed here, is use the square format. By using the square format, you're cutting out a lot of the extraneous rubbish which is around the outside. You're actually focusing on the subject.
Yeah, the square format's an old-fashioned format, but it's a bold one, and it's one I like. I like the square stuff.
Yeah. I've taken a great deal out of Saul Leiter, and I've just found another one that I'm beginning to start to look at very seriously. Is a woman called Olga Kovlovach.
Oh yeah,
and she works purely in black and white, and she does street blur with intentional camera movement. Now I've tried it. Now she's taken 3 or 4 years to perfect it. I had a go at it last weekend and put this stuff up on Facebook. Some of the comments I got back, I thought, well, that started the new year off quite well.
Her stuff's amazing, though, but it is so hit and miss. You take
so
many
Jean.
images.
Oh, right. This is a project that I started last year, and I really, and it's nothing like finished. It's got a long way to go. And I'd like some comments on how you think I might display it. So it's about light pollution, and it's incredible how really small amounts of light pollution can impact on the environment, on the organisms that we live with. So I've been trying to photograph light spilling out of places where it really shouldn't. So coming out of doorways and windows that really there's no need for. They could just as well be covered. There's goods yards where the gates are absolutely locked tight. You couldn't possibly get in, and even if there was anything worth pinching, you couldn't get in to pinch it. So why flood it with light? And the light is predominantly nowadays LED lights, which are very cheap, and therefore, instead of having the same number of lumens, everybody installs much brighter lights, and they're much whiter lights. And the result of that is that they're much more dazzling, much more contrasty, and actually the shadows are much deeper, so they're not as safe as the old-fashioned light. So organisms really mainly are negatively impacted, except spiders. If you have light shining on a tree, you massively reduce the amount of insect life in it, which produces less food for birds. Now, this is where I'm stuck, because I want people to look at the pictures of the light and think about the organisms that are impacted. And I've tried various different ways of displaying them. I want a booklet, and I've tried putting the light pictures with the organisms. Now, these aren't the ones that I choose, they're just sort of examples. Obviously, you wouldn't have such a green moth with the light, but how do I get it across? And I've tried putting the organisms in monochrome and having them pale, so that you get the idea that they are damaged and perhaps not going to be there. This morning, I was listening to Steve LaProvost talking about textures, and this afternoon I've just been having a play with some of my very nice sharp pictures, making them a bit less sharp with textures, and it may be that's the way to go. So we must, for some reason, shine light on water, which has huge implications for organisms that live in the water and fly over it, and that affects fish. And we shine light at water, and it pulls insects away and reduces food for organisms like frogs and toads. We shine lights at, come on. We shine lights at buildings, at birds fly into windows. So if people could think of different ways I could display them, I would be grateful. We seem to absolutely love hanging rows of lights along promenades over water, which doesn't either light the promenade or do any good, just looks pretty for no good reason. And if we do it, we will stop having fish. We will not be able to watch fish leap if we go on doing it. All sorts of organisms are negatively impacted. We, for some reason, have to light up the tower. Now, you need the red light at the top for aviation safety, but you don't need to light up the tower and the post, and that will impact on things that fly at night. So butterflies do also fly at night. Butterflies, moths, birds, they can't navigate when we light the skies with artificial light. And trees, the trees blurry because I'd moved the actual picture when I produced the PDF. So So that's it really. So I'm looking for any suggestions of how you can link the pictures of the artificial light with the pictures of the birds and insects and fish and animals to make people think about the things that they like and what damage they're doing to them.
I've had the advantage of seeing these for the last couple of weeks, and I had no clue what the link between the two sides were. So that does illustrate your problem, I think.
There would need to be text.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I want a better way for the pictures to work together.
You mentioned making the pictures of the wildlife graded and poor, but it maybe work better the other way if you had wonderful pictures like your bird there or of the frog, and they were in great colour, but the other ones were bad. So you were saying good, bad, good, bad. Would that be another way of doing it? Or would that lose the message?
Jean, I came home from Inverness the other week on the bus. Unfortunately, I had the front seat and it was after lighting up time. Now, we've all heard now lately of the real problem that people are having with these new high-intensity headlights.
Right.
And sat on the front of the bus, I always have my camera with me, and I like trying to take the reflections from the side window across to the driver. But I really noticed, sat there without having to do the driving myself, just how intense these lights were coming towards us. And amongst the images that you've got there, I haven't seen something that actually portrays that intense light, which actually disorientates you. So I'm wondering whether it's worth going out on a road or on a bus or something like that in there with a camera and trying to get that photograph of light streaming towards you and you are completely disorientated, which is basically what is happening to the animals and flora and fauna that you're talking about as a sort of central image to try to get the point across, because it's something that everybody knows about.
I have tried that, but I haven't got one that worked yet.
I can say that the timing of the bird and the underwater photography is absolutely perfection. You know, it's just wonderful to see what Jean and David and other David with the street photography, others and other Mr. I forget his name with the Glasgow one. I used to be studying in school in Greenock High School first year before coming to Sandwell in 1980. But I never thought I would be a photographer, coming to West in Sandwell. But it's wonderful to see the birds and the Glasgow and the David and the other photographers' work. It's just it's so exciting. Thank you.
Jean, is there any way you could possibly get the birds at night with some lights in the shot as well? It's very difficult technically, I'd imagine, to do that, but
very, very difficult. And you'd have to use a flash, and I specifically don't want to use any extra artificial light. So this is about artificial light that's there. So I did think about that for bats, but
or barn owls maybe.
Sorry, Clive.
No, it's okay, Andrew.
Do you not feel that the supporting text is going to be sufficient to support the images? Have you explored that enough that you've concluded?
Visually, I don't think I have got something that people will. It just, I don't know. To me, it doesn't fit together. I've done the white side for the light and the black side for what's going to go, but I.
Could I just comment on that, because personally, too late. Sorry.
We missed one. I couldn't resist in showing you the Vietnam and Cambodia trip. I'm sorry about that. And this is a bang me being produced on the street at night. and I love the swirling smoke coming off. And a lot of it that I took was, yeah, you're going to say snapshots, but they were hanging out of a tuk-tuk or a rickshaw or something like that most of the time. And I was just firing away and pointing my camera. Now, this is just my favorite. These are two kids that were waiting as the tourists went back to the ship. And an American friend just gave them loads of dollars and they thought they'd become millionaires overnight. And it was just full of joy. And I just couldn't resist. I was at the back as always and just caught these two showing their dollars to everybody. And that's the sort of thing I like taking, is a moment happening. And this is in a school we went to in Cambodia, and they were learning English. And you can see the English wording on the screen there. And just this boy's face was so joyous in what he was doing. And this little girl looking round, curious at me at the back there. The tourists would go through this school, and it was all about learning English. So that's why they bring the tourists in. And then they give you sheets of paper in order to fund it. And this is a market typical in Vietnam. You'll see the dead ones being brought out from the shadows, being put on that plate. And then you see the live ones around her feet that can be picked out. The fresher they are, the better. And you'll get the mopeds coming along, stopping, and the ones that are kicking more, that's the one they choose. And they go and sort it out and put it in a bag and on their way. And I love this one. This is a Buddhist monk in a busy city, probably giving a blessing to this mother and child. Lasts about 20 minutes. We went through that at a temple ourselves. And I just think it's interesting. I left that tuk-tuk coming past in the shot. I just thought it showed the busyness of the street. And it was just a moment that caught my eye at speed. But I love it. It's as I do hundreds of them I took. And this was at a service station in Cambodia. There's a fuel pump, there's a restaurant, etc., etc. But I just fancied sitting on the roadside while the rest were having their coffee. And this farming vehicle's coming past, this little old knackered bike hooked up to this huge farm plants and stuff. And this guy sitting on it with a cheroot, just locked off his accelerator to carry on with his feet up, just cruising along like that. And then typical family on a scooter. You can tell it's Hanoi because you've got the guy on the left there with the rickshaw and the Cambodian pith helmet. And at the back, you've got the light coming through and the mopeds coming and the flags. And I just love this little family. Very, very neat, very expensive bike for the others around him. And there's such a diversity of the mopeds, millions of them going about. I could sit there taking pictures of these unusual people every day. And then as you're going past on the Jeep, this was in color. And that's a lovely brand new purple bike. So I wasn't sure whether to go color or black and white, but I thought the other colors around it distracted it from this emotion of this girl. All the kids come out to wave at you. And they're all so friendly and having so much fun in the villages as you go past. I love that movement, and it's a bit, I don't know, Steve McCurry. And then we're in Hanoi, and this is what they do. They the girls love to dress up in these lovely dresses and go out in the parks. And you'll find photographers out there photographing these girls. And I'd love to live out there. I'd be happy as Larry. All these girls that want to be photographed. And try and do it in the UK. They're all very suspicious. Yeah, they wouldn't like it. But there, I was just photographing them. They were very happy. So they're absolutely beautiful. And this is the last one, I think. And you can see the hustle and bustle. I love this little girl behind the main moped being crushed up with all the hustle and bustle of the city. And yeah, just capturing things like that floats my boat. And that's what I'm going to be doing. Lisbon in May, Australia, because my son's out there at the end of the year. I'll book the next cruise on the Danube. So Eastern Europe, maybe some larders and stuff. See if I can continue this hike that I get. So enjoyable. But you're going to say snapshots because it was.
No, what I was going to say was, are you going to be a black and white photographer or a color photographer?
I like them both. It depends on the scene and the light. And the same as, I mean, that's a good question because people tell me you've got to have a style. And I can't get my head around it because there's so many shots that I don't want to get rid of because I want to stick with my style. Because it's because of the moment, the place, it needs a certain thing. So, yeah, I struggle with style. But
I think you've got a style. No, there's definitely a style. You say snapshots, but I don't see them as snapshots.
No,
there's definite intent in each of these pictures, and that is what differentiates a snapshot from a photograph for me. Is that I can see the intention that you've brought to the scene. You know, you've recognized something and taken it. It's not just a snap.
Yeah, there's a story. There's a story in each frame, isn't there? Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You certainly
the stories.
You certainly get a sense of place. You know, so from a travel photography point of view, you've nailed it on every one that I've seen.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. I've been to the same markets in Vietnam, and it's chaotic. You've managed to make a set of very, definite images there, which I know from trying it myself how difficult it was to pick out a subject amongst all that and cut out the chaos.
Snowing very badly outside.
You'll find, as you've been probably looking at all the other people's photographs tonight, everybody's looking for a style or a message or something to do. So you're not alone in looking for a style. And the more you take, the more you hone down, the more you focus in on what you want to do. It'll happen. It'll happen. You just got to take as many as you can.
And I'm sure I like the autumn colors and the moody type shots. If I get one of those, it's like Rembrandt paintings when the light hits them and they're coming out the black or coming out the shadows. Definitely, that's what I like. So yeah, I do have a sort of a style. And
these are none of those.
Yeah, what was that saying? Not reflected in these ones.
Oh, I've ruined it now.
You can have more than one style.
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have different things and different things. You put them in wee compartmentals and there was an RPS talk about that a few months ago, but somebody, and he said all these very different styles, but he did that lot and he did that lot and he would jump between them. But when he was working on the streets, he would do monochrome, square. When he was working in landscapes, he would do color and he would do panoramic. So he just changed his style and changed his camera as he went along.
Well, the one thing you've got is the ability to hone in on the subjects that there's something interesting happening. So I'm sure you've got thousands of pictures, but you've selected these 10 for tonight. You've got a lot of photography is about being able to self-edit and choose the ones to show. And I think what you've shown us is really good.
Oh, it's very hard. It's very hard. Can I go for a wee now?
Can you go for a wee? Yes, you can. You've got special dispensation to go for a wee.
I'll be back.
So while we're waiting for Nigel Corby's on next, while we're waiting for him, we'll talk about Mick when he's not here. So, what do you think? Has he got a style?
I've been out on the streets in Inverness with him, and he's got a fantastic rapport with
people. He has.
Mm-hmm. And the way he works with people, and I've been on at him, for goodness sake, sort of get the style sorted somehow, but you've got a fantastic rapport and people just work for him.
We were in Stirling with him, remember? And we're up in that lecture up in the McRoberts Centre, the toll booth. And he had those two women and he was chatting away to them. They were doing the photography course and they were all showing each other their pictures. Oh, there we go. Nigel, you're on.
I'm trying to see whether I can make something from not a lot. This is a place in northeast Scotland which I visited several times and which I'll continue to visit in the coming year. Until recently, there was a small mansion house here. The original structure was built in the 17th century. There was also a walled garden. The house was demolished in 2017 to make way for new houses which have not yet been built. This is a watercolour of the house by one of its occupants, which I recently found for sale. It's from 1884. It was done by an army officer who served in India and Afghanistan. On the death of his wife, he came to Scotland with his children and took a lease on the house. He died there 3 years after painting this picture. He was 57 years old. The site now is relatively small. It's not much more than 1 acre. The demolition company did a tidy job. Almost nothing now remains of the house except for a well and the wall around what was the garden. Some of the vegetation is clearly the progeny of the plants which were cultivated around the house and the garden. I'm attracted to places like this precisely because nothing much remains. I want to see what I can make of the little which is here. I like to walk slowly around and wait for subject matter to appear in front of me. What I find will depend on a number of factors, including my mood on the day, which will determine if I am receptive to what is here. There are patches of ground where stuff grows freely and areas where plant growth is inhibited by remains of what has now been demolished. These traces of times past are enough to get me thinking about the lives which lived here in this space over the past 300 years. There will have been moments of joy and times of sadness. There will be times of ecstasy brought on by hope. And there will also have been the deep numbness resulting from despair. But as well as thinking about those whose lives were lived here, my internal monologue is recycling my own personal memories, which are triggered by what I find here. These are memories of actual places I have visited, but also recollections of imagined places based on books I have read, films I have seen, and stories I have been told. These are often only half-remembered memories. I get a vague feeling that what I'm looking at is similar to something I have encountered before. But I am unsure exactly what, when, and how that was. And when I show my pictures to others, perhaps they will trigger their own memories, which will likely be different to mine. I sometimes have a feeling of this being a mythological sort of place, a fairy tale place, a place where the unusual might happen. I would not be surprised if a fawn appeared out of the trees, or I might even glimpse a hatter, a March hare, and a sleepy dormouse taking tea. The wall around the garden would have been to provide shelter from the weather. But large solid walls have me speculating about walls for keeping people in and walls for keeping people out. Walls for marking territory and walls intended to be an overt sign of wealth and power. Look on my wall, ye mighty, and despair. Back out of the garden and into the surrounding woodland. Where does this path lead? What comes into your mind as you gaze through this opening and along the path into the wood beyond?
I like the end picture very much. Sorry, Mr. Stephen.
Okay.
I like the end picture very much. It's like Wind in the Willows, just going through the rabbit hole, going into the mysterious world and finding some more woods, and then another mysterious world there, some more trees and woods. I like that. That's my favorite picture.
They're your memories, memories of your childhood.
No, not mine. Just in the cinemas.
Ah.
Nigel, this whole set, it has a different effect on me. It's not so much memory as an imagining of what the future might look like for current modern buildings. We look around us now, and this was once a modern building for somebody. This was new and lived in, and like you say, occupied by real people, just like buildings are today. And if we look around the modern built environment, who's to say what it will look like in 100, 200 years time? Will it look like this? I don't know, but it makes you think, doesn't it, about the transitory nature of everything, really. Yeah, great, love it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, following Clive's comments, it struck me as a series of images about liminal spaces, Nigel. You know, this transition from one area to another, which I guess could be physical and tangible, or as Clive was suggesting, you know, perhaps between the present and the potential future. But I think it's a very interesting set of images, and it could be perhaps be applied to, you know, different approaches in terms of, if you're thinking of a statement of intent, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
And when you look at the size of the house that was there before, and how it's just not there now, and look at those walls, they've been well built. Modern houses are not going to last like that. I mean, your average Stuart Milne construction house in Aberdeen will be long gone in 50 years' time. And you've done it. You've done a great job of making something out of nothing, which is what your intention was. You've taken a more or less empty space, but you've made it interesting. You've given us a story. So that definitely got legs on it. It's definitely got legs on it.
Yeah.
You said you were going to be going back. Are you going to? Is your intention to continue to document the empty space until it's used, or are you going to document the development of the new site?
I will. Actually, it's not far away. I'm going to keep wandering back and just waiting and see what I find. I think as soon as the development begins, the big private no entry sign will come up, and it'll be off limits then. But my real interest is not so much in what replaces it, but in what I can find there now. In a place where most people will go straight past it and don't even notice it.
You know, Mr. Nigel, you're a very good storyteller. You should be. If you were younger, and if someone advised you, you could be working in cinema. You know, doing this narrative storytelling, landscape photography. It's a very concise, and it's very clear photograph. It's every leaf is detailed. You can see the corners along the edges. How much no detail is lost in the photograph, and it's everything's blending in. All the images that you have shown is blending into a marvelous story of pictures that could be an element of archival display or something.
You need to get back soon while there's snow on it and have some different seasons.
Yes.
The thing about snow is that even untidy gardens look good in the snow. Right, Neil.
Thank you. My focus for this year is going to be on something I've not really done before, which is not in a serious way, is portraiture. I mean, I have taken portraits. My principal work has been street photography and documentary, and this is an example of a candid street photo, as you can probably tell by the expression on the woman's face, taken in the Tuileries Gardens in Paris. This is the beginnings of some portraits, deliberate portraits. This is from my project called As Long as I Keep Busy, which is about people who live alone and loneliness. And what I've tried to do with this and other images I took for the project is to give some idea of context. And in this particular case, of course, the zebra skin on the back wall I found almost as fascinating as the subject. This is another one from the same project. This friend of mine, Eddie, is an artist and ceramist, and he's holding a self portrait as part of his art. And again, he is somebody who at the time lived alone. This is the beginning of a new project. This is very much work in project now. This is what I'm currently doing, which is capturing people in my local networks. I live in a small village in Fife, Ely, on the coast, which I'm sure many of you know, a village of 800 people. And David here runs the local deli and fortuitously for me, also the local off license. This is Susie, my Pilates teacher. With each of these images, I've captured them in all sorts of different ways and in different poses. And, whenever I go through them, I can never make my mind up about, which I prefer. But there is something about this particular image that I find intriguing. And I ventured into black and white. So, do I want to do black and white or color? I mean, who knows? This is Ian, my local news agent. And this was, I've experimented with taking images from different angles. So I was sat on the floor in front of his counter when I was taking this, with customers coming and going and climbing over me while I took that. This is a similar point of view, Peter, who's a fellow cyclist, and quite keen to have him photographed with the sunglasses on to give an air of mystery to him. This is taken on one of the back roads in Fife. And I'm sure you recognise this reprobate, who was kind enough to give me an hour or two in his surgery. And I thought of all the images that I took of Steve and shared them with him. I thought this was probably the most intriguing. I can't remember what this particular diagnostic lens is called, but I thought it was interesting. This is Andrew Brooks, who's a tailor in Edinburgh. Another example of black and white, obviously using natural light, which I prefer for all the images that I take.
You're a very good, strong, bold photographer, Mr. Neil.
Thank you. And this is the last one. It's not for the vegetarians. I'm afraid this is taken at my local butchery. This is Ewan, who in a previous life used to be a graphic designer. I've yet to explore with him why he made the transition from graphic design to butchery. But again, this isn't probably not the best one I've got of him, but I was very keen to get him alongside, behind the hanging sides of cows and other various animals that are in the freezer section of the butchery. So very much work in progress. I'll just see where it takes me. I've got no particular aim in mind with this, except to create a body of work of, if you like, environmental portraits, portraits that tell a bit of a story with perhaps a bit of meaning behind them.
I think the one of the the guy in the off license is quite telling because, as you say, Ely's not a big place, and that was a very well stocked off license.
What else do we do in the winter months, Steve? That's
yeah, it was a very well stocked off license.
Yeah.
So I've obviously seen some of the environmental portraits, people at their work, and I think they're very strong. I think they've definitely got something going for them. And the news agent and this guy here, and that was a Volk lens I had up in front of my hand. But those kind of unusual portraits are portraits, but they're more than portraits. They tell a wee story behind it. So I think those are particularly strong. Particularly strong.
Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mr. Neil is a very positive, bold, strong-minded photographer. And how you have beautifully edited your pictures, he comes across with your personality. So
I think the girl with the zebra, the fact that did you specifically choose the books to be Bill Bryson books?
Travel books, yeah.
I mean, it really added to the story, and I thought, well, that's really carefully done.
Yeah, I mean, with this particular project, I also summarised people's life stories, and hers is particularly interesting. She is from Poland, and her parents were very active in the Polish resistance towards the end of the Second World War, and so I spent a lot of time with her. But I was particularly intrigued by the zebra skin, I have to say.
Yeah. Can I say, I like this very much, the environmental portrait aspect of this. I was wondering, did I get it wrong? Do you, as a stylistic choice, choose a low viewpoint,
I've tried to vary it, Paul. I think it's just a bit of coincidence that there are a number of images in this set that have a low point of view. But I'm just experimenting as I take the images of these people.
I wonder whether you had a waist level camera and so.
No, I tend to get down on my knees, or in the case of Peter the cyclist, I was lying on the ground with his front wheel between my legs and praying that he didn't move forward.
I think, Neil, I think there's some great images in here, and it'll be great to see how your work develops. I think one of the things you do well is this sort of combination of, there's a gentleness. It's difficult to put into words, but even this image in front of us, there's some gentleness to it. Yet it's perceiving it. The environmental bit stands out because you get a real sense of what the individual's about, and to be able to do that, but keep this sort of gentleness around it. It was the same with your Pilates teacher. It was, again, there's a gentleness, but it's a very strong image. I'm not making myself really clear. I just think keep doing it, because I think some key themes will start to emerge, and maybe some contradiction of terms of how can you be a gentleman, a gentle photographer, and have this deep empathy, but get under the skin.
Yeah, thanks very much,
Neil Milne. How about Neil?
So there's probably no prizes for guessing that this is going to be about drone photography. If there was to be a prize for a caption competition, I think Dumb and Dumber might have a good innings for that one. So about 5 years ago, I first got a drone, and I've started experimenting with it and exploring it. And now particularly I want to see how I can take it forward with my first love, which is abstract photography. So when you first get a drone, you're tempted to do all the things you would normally do, is fly it as high as you can and as far away as you can and see what kind of images you can get. This is Sullivan in winter, when a really foggy day, I thought, well, if I can get above the clouds, above the fog, I might get a reasonable image, which I did, I think. That was a nice day out. After you've done that for a while, though, after you've explored all those possibilities, then you start thinking more about it in photographic terms. And that's more where I'm going with it now, less taking of short video clips and things, and exploring more about perspective and composition. It actually provides you with that 50-foot step ladder we've always wanted to have on occasions, or it takes you 10 feet out into a river where you don't need to get your feet wet, and you can start to take images which are completely different, but only by raising the camera up a few feet. You don't have to be way up in the air to do it. So then things then become more abstract. This is Talisker Beach on Skye. So taking a vertical top-down shot of Talisker Beach with the tide rolling in and the blocks of colour and pattern. It's obviously an abstract image, one that appeals to me. Deliberately done in a square format as well, as most of these are. So I'm lucky enough to work as a tour guide where I travel all over the country for about 7 months across April to September. And my camera and now my drone goes with me everywhere I go. So I've got all endless possibilities. And you start to look at things differently. You start to look for patterns and potential drone shots. This is just a field of daffodils, a local war memorial in a park in Arbroath. Go straight up and look down again, and it has a completely different look. And I just like the repetitive pattern colours of the daffies. Ordinary things start to get a new life as well. Angus is full of strawberry fields, and the polytunnels that cover them, I just thought, again, that might provide an interesting perspective for an abstract shot. So just blocking out anything extraneous, concentrating on the diagonals and the patterns, produced that image. And you start to get a little bit more adventurous with it. You have to be careful when you're flying around in cities and things. And I'm always very careful to make sure that I've got permission when I'm anywhere private, and I'm registered with the Civil Aviation Authority and all that sort of thing. So I do take the no-fly zones very carefully, treat that very carefully. So this is someplace that will be familiar to a lot of people. It's the multi-storey car park in Glasgow next to the Oval Hydro venue. I love that building. It's just a photographer's dream, but I managed to get up to get a certain angle over it with my drone. And now I'm starting to develop it a bit more by taking it into Photoshop and colouring the image to just give it a different look again. Occasionally I'll go out with my drone just to take standard images. So this was taken at Finlagan on the island of Islay. And I was there to actually try and fly the drone around the ruined castle at Finlagan, which in itself was interesting, but it didn't provide anything particularly startling. But the boardwalk leading out to it, when you looked straight down at it, gave a great abstract image just above the marshland there. Next one will be familiar particularly to Dave Shillerbeer. Colours look a little bit different too when you get a drone up in the air. This is Nairn Beach and the pier leading out from the harbour. And when I got up there, looking down at the tide coming in, the treacly colour of the water was actually amazing. And that's the natural colour it looked at on the day, which there was nothing like that at ground level, but it's just the effect of the light on the sand and what's underneath the water. So I'm trying to develop it more now by taking images into Photoshop and layering them and trying to produce even more abstract images. This particular one was a top-down shot of just a local woodland in autumn, which I then layered, flipped horizontally and vertically, blended them together to produce that particular image. So my goal going forward this year is to take the drone with me primarily as a still photography camera for my summer on the road and see what I can come up with. Thank you.
That's absolutely fascinating, Neil. I mean, I hadn't realised, that there was such a different perspective. Sounds a stupid comment, I know. But one thing I was thinking about when you were speaking, and I wanted to ask is, has the use of the drone affected the way that you use your ordinary camera, if I could call it that, as opposed to the drone camera?
I don't know if it has. I now go out with more tools, I guess, and I have to be kind of limit myself a wee bit, Neil, because it's tempting to go out. I take my iPhone with me every time I go out, and that's my first thing I look at to kind of frame and compose an image. And I used to do that before I then pulled out my proper camera. now I'm thinking completely different. You start thinking in a more of a 3D way of doing it. So yeah, I've always got the drone and I've always got my other camera with me. How the two knit together, it's work in progress.
Thanks.
Nick was talking earlier on about having a style, and I mean, I obviously know you very well, and you've had a sense of style almost from the one, but it's changed over the years. And this square format, graphic, abstract, you've dabbled with that in your painting. So is this going to be a bigger part of your photography, do you think?
Yeah, I think it is, and I'm still keen to go back to trying to combine art, as in painting, with photography, or at least some artistic input into my photography. It's a difficult one to try and nail down. I've been wrestling with it, different ways to achieve it over time, and this is just another tool in the kit bag, I think. Yeah, so I think it will be, Steve. Yeah, the job also limits me in some ways because I've only got so many hours in the day when I can do things on my own with the camera. So for 7 months of the year, I can get certain times of the day when I can get the camera out, but I don't have the same freedom to go out and explore that I've had in the past. So I'm trying to make the best of that.
You keep saying you're going to retire and cut down, you say.
Yeah, that's right. Watch this space.
But it's not going to happen this year, is it?
No, no. Too many good tours.
But I think that the combination of the viewpoint and the graphic design that sense of style that you have, and getting above it all, gets a whole bunch of images that are completely different to anything out there. I think it's quite an exciting thing.
I think it is, and they're not expensive. I mean, I've got probably the cheapest drone you can get, just a DJI Mini. I've had it for 5 years. It's been rock solid, reliable. The image size isn't massive, so if you're looking to pixel peep, it's going to fall a bit short in that respect. But that's not the kind of image I'm taking with a drone. It's more about the effect. It's more about color, and the abstract look of it. So yeah.
But Neil, the picture of Talisker Bay and the one of Nairn Pier, I guess there wasn't much done in the way of Photoshop with these.
That's
so
right.
You're taking some of your images and presenting them as they're captured.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's more about then just framing and cropping to create that image. You're absolutely right. There was very little processing of any on the Talisker and the Nairn pictures. As time's progressing, I'm experimenting more in Photoshop with processing them. But, I can go either way. I don't mind.
Right, okay. Yeah, cool.
Can you use a polarizer on the water one?
No, I don't. You can get filters for them, Jean, but anything I do, I do in post,
The idea of putting above the clouds and getting Sullivan, that's quite clever. Yeah. People hike for days to get to viewpoints.
I know. That's the
was a drone.
It's a bit like on an electric bike,
Yeah. Yeah, I just presumed you'd camped out all night.
I was actually going to go out today and set my drone up above the fog in Arbroath, but it was too blooming cold. I thought, I'll stay in the house.
Yeah. And that last one, it's almost like a kaleidoscope, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're quite easy to produce in Photoshop, actually. Yeah, there's no real wizardry in that. It's just a few quick actions and you've got that.
Yeah.
It's also like in the four corners, you've got the four winds. They look like grotesque cherubs.
Well, and there, Paul, just if you've spoken, you're on.
Right, I'm on. Right, this is a kind of hinge point year for me. Kind of thinking about relocating and a few years into retirement. So this is split into two parts, really. The first project I'm going to talk about is bridges in Bristol, going from its eastern suburbs to the Avon mouth, and just trying to capture the quality of each bridge in turn. So I had in mind that the sequence would be rigorously from east to west, which made any kind of presentation of a panel or anything like that kind of impossible. Because these, as you see from the first two, are different shapes, different sizes. Some are black and white, some are color. But at each bridge, I was trying to capture its quality, and its quality defined what medium in terms of a photograph I was going to do. So there's very little coherence except from going from east to west and trying to capture a specific quality of each bridge. And generally, there are people or living things appearing in these pictures. This was I photographed this one day, and it was bright sunshine from exactly the same position, and it was a completely dull, uninteresting photograph. But I woke up one morning and it was misty, and I thought, I must go back. And actually, I think fortunately it did work out that time. And it was one of those occasions, I don't know if anybody's seen this before, maybe, but anyway, it was one of those fluorescent jacket moments. You can go anywhere in a fluorescent jacket. This bridge is extraordinarily dull to photograph, but actually what struck me here was the harmony between the colors of this guy's outfits and the colors of the houses. What's weird about this photograph is the sky, which looks so much as though it's been dropped in, photoshopped in, but that's exactly how it looked at the time. That was what was. This is what is now, and I'm thinking about Lines in the Landscape is the title of this current project. This is Snowdon. In my youth, I walked up that path. In older age, we got the train. I should have thought of a drone. Anyway, this project is about lines people make in the landscape, and whereas the bridges occasionally people or live things appear, they don't in this landscape, in this series. This was a photograph in my garden. It may not make the final cut in the project, but I was struck at the time when I sort of gazed up at the shadows cast by the vapor trail on the underside of the clouds. And it was just a remarkable moment. And that's kind of a phone shot. And I don't know whether this is just one for the memory bank or one for the project, but it's certainly a line in a landscape. This is more on theme, as it were. And what I'm finding is that the lines tend to be tracks or boundaries or occasionally infrastructure or something that blurs the boundaries. I think this is definitely a boundary. It says, don't drive your car further along this beach or you will sink into the sand. This vapor trail wasn't intentional, but actually I think it does add to the image overall. This is an annoying photo because it was in situ. It was such a powerful Zorro zigzag of a wall in the landscape, but it's a grey slate wall in a grey slate quarry surrounded by grey slate. And I don't want to process it so hard that it ceases to be a natural image. So I wish it were better than it is, but it is a line in a landscape. This is the final one, which sets off all the kind of cliche klaxons in my mind. And again, one that may not make the final cut in this project, but as I said, a hinge point in my life, this feels as though I'm on a path towards a horizon, but who knows what's there. And I think as a metaphor, this kind of sums up my present position in life and in retirement. So Lines in the Landscape, that's the project I'm working on, and I hope to be progressing through this year.
And are they all going to be square and monochrome then?
Yes, for this one, because they are sort of geometrical, I think, at heart, these lines, I think to me it works best in as someone else said, at the wider field of view, there is often something extraneous going on, but keep the focus in a square. And the black and white for similar reasons. This is a kind of a graphic enterprise in a way, these lines. And I think that best comes across in black and white.
Yes, in square format, you can still use the same rules for photography, but you're much more constrained. and you lose all the extraneous stuff around the outside.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm saying this is a bit cliche, it's all a bit bang on rule of thirds, isn't it? But however, you don't want to bend it out of shape completely, and somehow it did. It did fit with what I had in mind for it.
They don't have to be. They don't have to be strong lines. You could have subtle lines as well. You were concerned in the slate quarry about maybe the wall not standing out. I don't think you always need to spoon feed the viewer. I mean, let the line be very subtle, and let the viewers work a little bit as well. I really liked the slate quarry one, and I wouldn't have liked to see any more processing on it. In fact, it'd be interesting to see it with even less.
Bring it back a bit. The bridges I was hoping to make into a panel, but I couldn't make it work into any kind of thing. So in the end, for my own satisfaction, I just made it into a book, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And it is so nice to have a physical thing in your hand, I must say.
And you're also not in Bristol just now, so it would be hard to continue.
It would. Well, it came to an end. I did all the bridges and wrapped it all up.
If you go to Glasgow, you can do, and there's a beautiful information board by the suspension bridge down by the railway station. And there are actually 21 bridges across the Clyde, all of different styles through the ages. And it gives a complete history of how you cross the Clyde from north to south.
Oh, it'll be interesting.
Were you reading that when you were lying waiting for the ambulance coming, Dave?
That
was a close one, wasn't it?
It certainly was, wasn't it? Yeah, it still makes me go cold.
Me too. Me too.
Anyway, so this was.
I didn't even know you had a camera with you. Oh, I didn't see a camera. Oh,
well, I certainly saw the other side of the NHS, didn't I?
Yeah, you did, unfortunately. So yeah, Paul, I think your lines in the landscape without people has definitely there's plenty of opportunities to get and do that kind of stuff. So I think that'll fill your time quite happily in your retirement up here.
Yeah, I think so. And as someone earlier said, it's the absence of people, it's the traces that people leave that are sometimes as interesting as the people themselves.
Yeah.
I think it was David. So, yeah.
And as Nigel said, sometimes you let people do a wee bit of work. That's where the intrigue is. That's where the satisfaction for the viewer sometimes comes.
Yeah.
There's one critic in black and white landscape. I mean, when I was at college, studying Ansel Adams' grayscale, you have to be very careful in. I think, if you don't mind, and I'm not criticizing your work. I'm just saying.
Next one on. So, interesting. We've seen a few portraits of people tonight, and we've all. I think one of the advantages of this group is that we encourage each other and we influence each other and we give each other ideas. So while Dave's still alive, I thought I'd take one of him. But on a serious note, the portrait stuff, there's Neil as well. I've not done much portraiture over the years as well, and I want to do more portraits. I would like to do more gentle portraits and more quiet portraits. I did a course in Edinburgh with David Eustace, which is all about the design of portraiture, so the background. And I would like to do much more of that kind of stuff. So that's one of the things I'd like to be doing more of this year, is to take portraits that are all square, all black and white, and are gentle. There's not going to be an awful lot of stuff in the background. It's going to be fairly straightforward. There's a guy called Ed Carlisle who we might meet later on a couple of more things, and I met him in Glasgow and whenever he's out. And that wee look and I think if you get these wee touches, this was the course that David Eustace did. It was all about the small things and the detail things. This is one of my golfing buddies. Jane might recognise him. And he is at heart a poser, although he maybe would deny that in life, but actually he is a bit of a poser. So trying to get a bit more of the people out. And sometimes you know them. So far I've known most of them. Sometimes I haven't known much about them. So you've got to make these wee quick decisions about people and try and set them up. But I want to be empty portraits. And the emptiness is something I want to move on to in landscapes as well. I want to do fairly empty landscapes with people, not necessarily without people, but with not much in them, so that you can. This is my angel of the northeast. So I couldn't quite build a big statue outside this in Arbroath, but I got Audrey to stand still and kid on. She was a big statue. So I think if you can get, I'm trying to get landscapes and take away some of the stuff, and just end up with shapes and feelings. And I think that the freedom of this, the restrictions of the format, means that I don't have to worry so much about having a fancy camera or having fancy gear. Some of these could be phone photographs, because it's not about pixel peeping. It's about feelings and shapes and colours or no colours, and shades of grey. So that's kind of where I'm hoping to go. Hope to do more portrait stuff. I'm hoping to do more simple stuff. And that is literally just outside my window here just now at Kinlochrannoch. It was a misty morning here as well. And you couldn't see the far ends. I got the rocks in front of me and couldn't see the far ends. Big spaces. But I think spaces are good. As Nigel said, sometimes give people a bit of space, let them think about the things, let them move into it themselves, let them come up to their own images and their own thoughts and their own memories of things, and just hopefully that people will chime with it. It can be indoors. I'm not going to restrict myself to just being outdoors when I'm doing these minimal shots, but that's a particularly high key one. I went for a very high key look, just to try and take away all the things that might make it more recognizable for where it is or what it was. And people will know it's inside a building, but even the people in the building hopefully wouldn't recognize what building it was. So emptiness is what I'm looking for. The photograph nothing, or photograph very unusual things and let people think about it themselves. This is actually from a separate thing I'm doing about loneliness as well, and being alone and not being reliant on other people. And sometimes loneliness is a bad thing, and other times it isn't necessarily a bad thing. So this was an image I took to try and show a bit of strength in being as a single person. Not that I am single, but simple things, empty scenes. So I'm hoping there's a lot of empty scenes around the world that I'll be able to take photographs of. That's my plan anyway. And I'm the last speaker for the night, so we've got a few minutes and then we'll be finished, and that'll be us done and dusted. So anybody can ask
most of these handheld, Steve? Are most of these handheld? No.
They're all handheld, yeah.
They all are, yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're all handheld. I've there we go. Can I go up? Thank you. Let's make it you. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, and trying to just strip back all the technical stuff and all the fact. I've spoken before at a couple of camera club nights about doing away with multiple lenses and multiple cameras and just getting back to being simple. And now I'm going to apply that even more and just make it even simpler still. Travel light, use my imagination, use my legs, and just use what I've got. And I'm hoping that will end up being how it all works out.
Happy New Year to everybody, and thank you for inviting me. But it's really exciting to see all your work. Jean and I can't remember everybody, but Glasgowian is a favourite street scene.
I think this is the advantage of this kind of grouping, is that it is quite diverse and quite different, and everybody's got their own ideas, and yet we all come together and it works pretty well.
I think I was going to say, Steve, that I think there's a you touched on it in your remarks, but I think there's a lot in your response. You know, I think fairly regularly about whether there's going to be some sort of photography backlash against the seemingly increasingly complex approach to photography, with, you know, driven by technology and so on, and the fact that, you know, we can create ever more complex images, and whether, you know, eventually we'll reach the stage where a number of people say, you know, let's just strip it all back to basics, and you know, let's, you know, whatever the equivalent of a slow food movement in photography would be, but, you know, that sort of approach where people will begin to appreciate simplicity.
It's already happening, Neil. I think it's already happening. There's a big uptake on analog photography again. People are starting to use film again in the old cameras.
Yeah,
and there's so many of the square formats tonight. I mean, I've got a couple of twin lens reflex square format 6x6 cameras, and I certainly enjoy using those. And it does bring that square crop, brings not just the constraint, but it brings the simplicity to the composition. That I think I find it much easier to compose in a square than you know, a 3x2 or a 5x4 or something like that. And I think that does hark back to the old days of medium format film.
But also Gen Z, there's been a huge uprise in compact camera sales as well. You know, so just going back to point and shoot and capturing movements.
I also think with the AI nonsense, that actually we could go back to the idea of photography is first about seeing rather than imagining, because you can imagine anything you like, but the act of seeing is really what photography is about.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Just want to say that I don't have much money, but equipment-wise, I was working in a photographic studio, English studio, by a South African photographer in London, in Harrow. A long time ago, in the 80s. I did other works with other companies, English companies, in photography. But the thing is, I don't have much money now, but you're right. I know your work is extraordinary. You're brilliant, but I like to just point and shoot because it's fun, you know. It's laughing. It makes people laugh. You know? Oh, I've seen that picture before, they say, and where did you take it? And it just starts a conversation with an audience. But you're majestic, guys. You know, you're fantastic.
I think there's a difficulty about simplicity, and to try and make something simple and yet still make it graphic and work and interesting and ask questions. I think simple's quite hard, but I think sometimes all the fancy equipment just takes you away from it. And AI, as Paul said, the AI takes you down a whole different rabbit hole altogether. So hopefully none of us will disappear down that one. We'll all stay in the real world. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the night to an end, only so I can stop the recording. And I'm going to thank all the photographers who came along and showed us their stuff. And I'm going to thank the people who came along and had a wee watch and listen, and contributed just by being here and having a wee conversation here and there. And the year's going to carry on. Next one is a talk. And the one after that's a book club. And then we'll have some more outdoor stuff. We'll get back to being outdoors again. So this is just the starter for the year. And I hope to see all of you as the year goes on. So thank you all very much for coming.
Stephen. Thanks,
Thanks, Steve.
Happy New Year.